very much for everybody for coming and joining us today for a new virtual coffee for Confined Yogis. This is about our 7-1 of virtual coffee, and we have people and yogis for 36 countries today, and more than 20 US states. So I'm really pleased to have everybody coming, and certainly Gabriella as our guest. So our guest today is Gabriella Giubilaro, senior Iyengar teacher from Italy. She started yoga in 1973 with Donna Oloman in Italy, and then went to Pune in 83 to study with BKS Iyengar and his family. And she has returned since regularly to study with the Iyengar. She founded Iyengar Institute in Florence in Italy in 1987, and she has been teaching workshop worldly in person and now in Zoom. And I had the wonderful experience of being in one of her workshops this morning in Argentina, and it was a wonderful experience. Thank you very much for the inspiration, Gabriella. Gabriella is also a scientist with a PhD in physics. She left academia to dedicate herself to Iyengar yoga. Gabriella's teaching is known for being generous, kind, and precise. She strives for students to understand all facets of yoga with their embodiment, with all their embodiment, with their body, mind, and soul. So before we start asking questions, I would like to let you know that we will have 15 minutes at the end of that hour for your questions. So, and please use the raise hand feature on the Zoom app during this time, and we'll unmute you, or you can write in the chat room if you prefer doing this way. So without further ado, this coffee has been created for us to explore together with senior Iyengar teachers from all over the world. How do we live our yoga in this period of pandemic, in this period of uncertainty? So this is basically the topic of all our coffees. And today we have Gabriella with us, speaking to us from Italy. And before we start with this topic of the pandemic, what is it that we're doing during the pandemic? I'd like to ask you, Gabriella, I know most of people know you, but I would like you, if you can, to just tell us how you came to yoga and what was your yoga journey? How did you make BKS Iyengar? And tell us something about you and your yoga journey.
Very short.
Un poco. Okay, un poco.
Poco. Okay. Like most of the people, I went to a yoga class because I met a friend that was going to a yoga class. And so I went to my first yoga class, and I had a ski underwear. So I was covered from the tip of the toes to the neck. And I could not remove the socks, I could not remove anything. And I was impressed because my teacher, that was Donna Holliman, she said, spread the toes. I did not even know that the toes existed, that you could spread the toes. And since then, not only I went every day, I started to practice home from my first yoga class. Every time I went back home and I tried to explore, to understand what we did in the class. I was so upset with myself that I could not do things. For example, I could not do halasana. I could not arrive with the feet to the floor in a halasana. So I remember to go home. And I had stomach ache, but I managed to put the feet on the floor. So this was my practice, to try to do what I could not do in the class. But I was 22, 23 years old, so it was okay. It took me many, many years to understand that the yoga practice is something different. And I met Guruji the first time 10 years later. And Guruji, the first time he saw me in the class, he started to be very upset. He said, you think you are very good. You think you are very good. And he was very hard with me. And so I was very shocked. But I continued to work with him. And because when Donna Holliman left, didn't want to study anymore with Iyengar, I decided to go to work with Iyengar. That is my story. And then I consider that I was very lucky, first of all, to have a Iyengar yoga teacher in Florence, because at 22 years old, I was not in India, I was in Florence. So I was very lucky to have a very good yoga teacher in Florence at that point. And then I was very lucky that I started to work with Guruji and do all the workshop he did. Mm-hmm. I did not even miss one. Sometimes I went twice a year to India. Mm-hmm. And so I think I got the best of the teaching from Guruji, from Gita, and now with Abhijata, Prashant.
Yeah. So can you tell us, I know you have so many learning and so many teachings that you have taken from Guruji and from Gita and from the other member of the family. What is your most cherished learning that you have gathered through your years? What would you want to give us?
I learned to practice with Donna Holleman because I used to practice every day with her for many years. So I learned to have a stable practice with her. I learned to give the best of myself with Guruji, because with Guruji you could not, he was very sharp on scene and was always demanding the best, the top. So, and then Gitaji for me was the one that was very systematic. With Guruji, it was very intense and was a beautiful experience. But if Gitaji had more a scientific mind and more systematic. Mm-hmm. So if I made the system of the Iyengar yoga, I have to say thanks to Gitaji.
Mm-hmm. I see. So now
it's also interesting to study with Prashant and Abhijata, because also it's very interesting to see what variations you can do, where you can go, and to have a little bit more freedom, because with Gita and with the Guruji were more systematic. Yeah.
So now maybe we'll come back to the teaching of Guruji and the teaching of Gita later, but I'd like to turn to the topic at hand, which is the current global crisis. So Italy, your country, was at the epicenter of the pandemic in Europe and was the first country to experience a lockdown and a major health crisis. Can you speak a little bit about the experience of your pandemic in Italy?
Yeah. So first I say personally what's happening. At the end of February, I was in Moscow. And I start to read the newspaper that the COVID was spreading in Italy. And we start to be a little bit worried, but not so much. When I came back to the airport, I remember they measured my temperature, but then I went home. And a few days after, I remember our Prime Minister talking at the television and saying, from tomorrow, you cannot go out. So it was a kind of shock. Mm-hmm. But our Prime Minister was very gentle, very nice. He explained the reason. And so we understood the reason and was okay. And what was not okay was that the police around was a little bit too strict. We could not go out away from 200 meters. Even we had to buy the food at the nearest shop, even if it was the most expensive. We could not go to a supermarket that was a little bit, few meters beyond. Mm-hmm. If somebody was alone on the beach, they were running after him even with the helicopter. And I mean, when you are alone on the beach, what can happen? So we felt that sometimes the police was a little bit too strong. But anyway, it was interesting. And it was also a shock to see how many people were dying. Because in average, every day was dying what usually people from virus, from flu, die in 1 month. In 1 day. Yeah. But we knew that most of these were old people with other conditions. So I was not afraid, and most of the people around me and my family, nobody was afraid, but we were very careful. We were wearing the mask. I want to show, I made the mask, I had made the mask for myself with my African material. So you see?
Yeah.
I have all this kind of different color, so I could breathe, I could have a mask. So anyway, my only concern in the days was to buy some food for me, and it was good that I could buy at the market, and also for my older nanny that is 85 years old and she could not walk out by herself. So I was taking care, and that was it. And I stayed home. I really stayed home. I didn't want even go to visit my sister, my nephews, nothing. Because I was very convinced that that was the way to do. And what happened, I felt at once the necessity to be close to my students. Fortunately, I had a group, and all the teachers here in the school, they had this group on Zoom, not Zoom, sorry, in WhatsApp. So I could send a message, the class are closed. And anyway, but I also felt I thought that was good for me to remain close to them. So I started to send message, how is everybody? Are you well? Do you need anything? And if I knew that somebody was particularly sick or had some problem on the family or for moving, I tried also to be personally close, write, call, because I thought that in that moment, more than the yoga, they needed somebody close to them. Somebody that could support them. And this is what I did. We had also a meeting with the teacher of the association, and we were discussing what to do. So some people said, I'm going to teach with Facebook. I'm going to teach with Zoom was not there anymore for the moment. It was Facebook and was other WhatsApp, something else. And I said, I don't want to do. I don't know. I said, I don't want to do. I did not want to do because they wanted to do it because they wanted to continue to make money. From my point of view, that was not the moment that I had to be worried for the money. I mean, I can say because I did not need money in that moment. I knew that I could survive for a few months. So, and I didn't have to pay the rent for the studio. So I said, because I don't have this need, I don't know why I have to ask money to my students in this moment. So I refused to do it. And then the Zoom became very popular and many people were doing. They asked me again and I said, not Zoom. So the first time, then the association, the board of the association wrote to me and said, we would like to offer some free Zoom class to all the members of our association. And then I said, yes. And I decided to offer a pranayama class because I thought that was the best thing that I could offer in that moment. And so I did a pranayama class. And then the association asked for another class and I did asanas. And at that point, from all the feedback I had I didn't make any money there because it was just offering. So at that point, I understood that there was some benefit of doing this. Some people were enthusiastic. Some people wrote to me and say, oh, your class helped me a lot in this moment. I learned a lot. Even two people said, oh, now I want to become a yoga teacher. So it was, I mean, that was when I started to have some interest. And the first workshop I did was with Ella Yoga in Israel. And Ella, she's now a member here in this meeting. And that was my real first workshop where people were paying and where I made some money, I have to be honest. And only two I've done for there and in Moscow. And that was in July, August. But coming back first to the beginning, when we were closed and I was in what you call the lockdown, I realized that was my experience to be home alone, practice alone, have time for myself, and this is what I wanted. So months of March, April, May, this is what I did. I came to my yoga center, I took all the books, the notes, a lot of notes that I had from Guruji, from Gita, and I took it home. And I start to read and I start to practice.
So what did you practice? What was your personal practice? Did it change through the...
Yeah, okay, so then I go back to that topic. First, in the beginning, what my personal practice had to change because we were locked home. I was walking on the spot. I was running on the spot. I was doing, and I did not feel in the mood to do difficult yoga, hard yoga. I was doing something to keep the body alive, particularly the legs, because to be home, not to be able to go around and walk and teach and work, was very difficult for the body. So I was just going up on my toes and down, up and down, or lifting the feet. I was inventing, playing a lot of things with the legs, with the feet to make the circulation on the legs. A lot. And then mainly I was working more on the pranayama because I thought that the pranayama was very important to keep my lungs expanded and healthy for any kind of virus and disease. So the first month and a half, that was my concentration. I was not doing standing poses. And then I was doing head balance, shoulder balance to make sure to help my immune system. So head balance, shoulder balance, moving of the legs as much as possible, and pranayama. And I was writing to my students and saying, do pranayama, do this. And then with the teacher of my school, we did not see each other, but we were talking with a group WhatsApp, and we decided to register some classes to offer to our students. So I became a cameraman. I became so I learned how to use a computer to register film. And I did not demonstrate, but I had one by one all the yoga teacher of my school, and I was talking at the computer, and they were performing easy asanas, very easy, including Shirshasana, Sarvangasana, Halasana, with a title. Some of our class was restorative, some was a little bit more challenging. And so we put that in our website, and we put this in in the Facebook. So anybody that wanted could open and follow a class. And this was very successful. I mean, a lot of our students really appreciated it. So much that when we open it again at the end of May, they say, no, now we like to do your classes on the computer. And they didn't want, some of them didn't want to come, but it's okay. So, but we felt more the necessity, in other words, me and the other teacher, to give support to our students. This was the most important thing.
Yeah.
So I want to say something. Slowly, my yoga practice changed. I felt the necessity to do more asana where you have to keep your balance. So I was doing a lot of Ardha Chandrasana, a lot of Virabhadrasana 3, Parivrita Ardha Chandrasana, Uttita Padangusasa, one leg up, one leg down. I was going from one pose to the other one without changing, And I felt much better doing that kind of work because it was giving me strength, stability. Because with my family and my community, I needed to be very grounded and very strong and be able to support everybody that was with different problems.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I have two kind of questions that I'd like to ask you. So we are now about 6 months dealing with the pandemic, and there was a resurgence of the pandemic, and maybe our mind and maybe even our body may place obstacles in our practice. So how, or when you do doubts, do we doubt ourselves now? What's going to happen with that pandemic continuing? How do we orient ourselves at this time?
I can say my personal opinion.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. My personal opinion that we have to learn how to live with this. Mm-hmm. So of course we cannot continue to stay home. We need to learn how to survive with this of the COVID. So, and I'm not a person that negate. I mean, this virus is there, and some of the people are really very sick. Some people are not very sick and they can recuperate very fast. And some people get very sick and some people die. So I think that we have to learn how to live with this, but I have to be cautious. We have to be careful. Mm-hmm. So, and this is something that it's happening a lot in Europe, in Germany, also in Italy. We call the i negazionisti, the one that said the COVID does not exist. They don't want to cover they don't want to use a mask, they don't want to be careful. And I think I don't like that attitude. But at the same time, I don't want to stay home the whole time. I want to be able to teach as much as I can and to be with people and to be careful. For example, this morning, they invited me to do a pranayama class. It was not here in Florence, it was outside. I went. And it was a big room because it was in Montauto, Ella knows where I do the workshop. There were like 20 people. And I had a teacher there in the room that was a teacher of that group. She had a mask. And I did not have the mask because I was teaching pranayama and the student did not have a mask, but I was sitting on the front, far away from them. I was teaching, and then the teacher with the mask was going around and correcting people. The people that were doing yoga, they were not talking. They were just maybe lying down. They were just quiet, not talking. And the other teacher was going around and maybe adjusting the head, putting an extra blanket under the head or covering. So this way, and of course she was good. She understood what I was telling her. So this way, we could do both. No? We could do the correction and I could teach. And it was very nice to be with people because the real teaching is on person, not in Zoom. I feel very strong on this, and even when I wrote an article for the newsletter in Italy, I say it's okay to do Zoom classes because this is what we can do now. But this is not the real teaching. The real teaching is an exchange of energy between the teacher and the students. So even when you teach 200 people, 300 people, even live, that's not the real teaching. The real teaching is when you have few students and there is a transmission, something that you can give. And when we were with Guruji, it was not his words that was, part was a word, but was his energy, his life, his energy. And this was affecting us. It was not the explanation. Otherwise, we could just read the book and would be the same thing. It's not. And the same with the Zoom. But, I don't know if you want to do another question. I just said there are positive things about the Zoom and there is negative things about the Zoom.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So do you want to talk about that? Do you want to talk about what is positive and what's negative about that?
So I said already that I started the Zoom because the association asked me. Okay, so, and in the beginning, I had no idea how to do. I was a little, anyway. And in the beginning, because I did also with the association, was not Zoom that I could see people, but was what we call webinar, because we are too many people. So I could see only 2 or 3 persons that I was using for demonstration, but I could not see the students. So it was very difficult for me, very difficult, because I'm used to go in a class and to watch the face of the people, to watch the body of the people, and I teach from what I see. I teach from what I think that they need. And even if maybe I can have a little program, but if something happens in the class, or if there is any injury, anything, I can change. I can go with the students. But if I don't see them, I don't see their face, I don't know their bodies, I don't know what will happen, what it is. My solution was to prepare the class. So the first time in my life, I took a piece of paper, with the computer, of course, I started to write my program and to write for every asana what I wanted to say, or for the pranayama what I wanted to say. And for the first 2 classes, I even tried to read loud voice before the class to time, to see how many minutes every pose, how to arrive to Shavasana and not to go out of time, how to do all this, because I wanted to make sure to have a good Shavasana at the end, because I thought that was very important to be able to relax and not to leave the people without Shavasana. So it was, I think that the first class with the pranayama, I stayed 1 week to work on that class. 1 week for 2-hour class. And of course, I was not there just reading, because once you think and you prepare, then you don't need to read. I was just reading some quotes, as I've done today. Now you know that I was reading some quotes from Guruji, but then I was just teaching. And I've done this now for every single class. Of course, I don't stay 1 week to prepare 1 class, but at least 1 day. 1 day, I take mine, I prepare, I think about the program, I think about the link, the action, then I go to read the notes, I go to read the books of Guruji, I go to read and to see if I get some inspiration, and I prepare my class. Because I think that when you teach Zoom, you need to be more precise, more clear, and then you have to give something meaningful, something that is more meaningful when you talk. When I am in the class, maybe I can adjust some person, and the person can have some inspiration, understand something, have some inspiration. When you only can talk, you have to be even more precise. So this was my focus in all these classes. And of course, it was not easy, because most of the students are always the same, and I need Zoom I do, so I have to be careful to teach everything something different, new asana, new explanation, new inspiration. So it has been a lot of work. Mm-hmm. And but I also understood the benefit of it. For example, when I just did 2 weeks ago, the one with Brazil, I had 240 students. I could never have 240 students in a normal workshop from 37 countries. So I would never have the possibility to have all these people, no? So I also have an advantage to be exposed to more people, to be known from more people. So I have to say that now I don't say that the teaching in Zoom is the best. I don't say that, but I also appreciate the positive part of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I appreciate what you just said, because this is why we have 37 countries in this in this Zoom meeting, who came to learn from your wisdom and from the wisdom of senior Iyengar teacher about how do we deal with this situation. And that brings me to the question about the anxiety, the fear, the uncertainty that this period has brought and has continued to bring us. So you started with pranayama and the accent of pranayama, but is there something now that you think needs to be different as we are in the duration? It's not so much about getting to the point of teaching, it's now what are we doing now that this is staying with us and there is still a lot of fear, anxiety, and uncertainty.
Okay, so first, the practice of pranayama has to be a little bit different, because when there is stress, when there is tension, it's difficult to go in. So the practice of pranayama has to be a little bit more physical, no? So we focus more on expansion of the ribs, no? This is also, I remember Guruji once, he was explaining, when there is tension, work more on the expanding the outer body. When you're quiet, you can go more inside. So, and then the other thing about the pranayama, we have in this time, we have to focus more on the back of the chest, on the back ribs, because the lungs are more on the back of the body. So in order to help the body eventually for any kind of a pneumonia or problem, it's better to be already trained to breathe on the back of the body. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And another thing that I try to do more, both in my practice and in teaching, is learn to keep quiet with the sense of perception. The eyes, the ear, the tongue, to pay more attention to that part, because it makes less stress for the body. Mm-hmm. And so if some doctors, even without talking about yoga, some doctors say also that it's good to do prana shavasana, to be on the stomach, and to learn to breathe on the back of the body. This is to do in this moment. So this is why we do a lot of Adho Mukha Virasana, hugging the bolster, these kind of things where we become aware and we work more on the back of the body. And also when you are in the back of the body and the back of the head, you become more quiet. So it has this double effect. And then in my personal practice, I also worked more on Nadi Shodhana, because Nadi Shodhana has a deep effect on the nervous system. And I had many teachers in Italy that wrote to me and she said, thank you for Gabriella for insisting to teach us Nadi Shodhana, because now I can see how this is useful. But of course, it's not a moment to learn Nadi Shodhana, but if you already learn, it's a time to practice and to do it. And it was also great to have more time to be able to practice pranayama, more time for shavasana, more time for this.
Yeah.
But that was a question. The question was about the pranayama, then what else did you ask now?
And what else do we need to be doing now that we are in the direction with anxiety and uncertainty, because this is still uncertain time, right?
Unfortunately, some people after the lockdown have a lot of fear. Yeah. They don't want to come to yoga classes. They don't want to do. I realize that they have fear because in my school, for example, the students paid already the month of March. So they could come without pain. So it was not a question of money, but it was a question of fear why they did not come back. And some of the classes did not even open. So we have to find a way how, I mean, for me it's more the yoga part, to encourage people to come and to do. The problem that is now we are going to the winter, so it will not be so easy to keep the windows open like we did up to now. So, but at least what we are doing in our school, we are we show that we are very careful about paying attention not to spread the COVID. So we changed all the rules in my school. We come inside from one door, we go outside from another door. We have a place where they can stay. They can put the mask off only when they are in their place. They have to disinfect their hands and feet. They need to have their own sticky mat, their own belt. And we provide only the bolster, but only if they have their own cover. They cover it with the bolster we disinfect everything after, not only the floor, every handle, the bathroom, everything. And they can see it, they know it. So they have a little bit more trust with us. They encourage to come. Of course, we cannot be perfect, no? But at least we try our best. They have all the rules. They cannot come if they have a sore throat, if they have fever, if they don't feel well. They have to call, and we have to write the name of everybody every time they come. So if any person is sick after, we can tell to everybody else that they were in the same room. So we have a lot of rules that come from the government. Some rules comes from the city. Some rules come from the Toscana. We have to follow the rules, and we really do it. We follow, because if anything happens, we don't want anybody to say, okay, you did not do this, you did not do this, and we are careful. We even ask the students to walk with the socks when they're going around, and they have to leave the shoes outside the entrance. We ask that in the building if we were allowed, as long as there is a COVID, to put the shoes outside, so we have a place where they can put. So we do our best. We have extra sticky mat, and we have extra blankets and extra cover for people that forget. And then after the use, we wash. Mm-hmm. So we make a lot of care. We are really careful about this. And I insist with all the teachers, because some teachers are negationistic. They say, no, we don't need. And I say, I'm sorry, we have to do it. Mm-hmm. Because if anything happens, I don't want to be responsible. It's not only legally responsible. I don't want to think that because I neglected something, people got sick. And but there is a fear. So we try our best, we encourage, but then if some people don't want to go out of the home, they cannot go out of the home. In the beginning, because we open at the end of May, what I did, I had some students in my special need class, some older people. I have one student who is 93, 95, and does not have a balance. So usually I have always an assistant with her on the back to be ready to help her if she would lose the balance. So fortunately, her daughter was also doing yoga with me. So I asked her daughter to come to help. Then I have another person who has paralyzed on the hands and cannot stand alone. And the wife was also coming to the yoga class. So instead of having an assistant for him, I said to the wife, you help your husband class. What's happening?
No, just somebody came in and was not on mute. You're fine, Gabriella.
Okay. So we had to, moment by moment, situation by situation, we had to understand what to do. So it requires some thinking and also some compassion. And some people, I had to do private class. Like I had a person that has MS and really bad. So she was coming to the general normal classes because I had some assistant, so I had somebody helping her. And because I could not have an assistant anymore in the class, I could not have people going around and checking. I told her, come in the morning, and I did some private class.
I see.
And so that's it.
You speak a lot about what took away that the pandemic was a problem for us to deal with. But can this period be also an opportunity for us to grow, an opportunity for yoga philosophy, an opportunity for contentment, for looking at all the qualities that we want to develop as a yoga teacher or as a yoga practitioner?
Then this is what I said in the beginning. I thought that this was the opportunity for me to study more. Mm-hmm. And to go to think, I mean, also to surrender. And I learned so much that the other day that I had to go to the pharmacy only to have a pin, I had to wait for 2 hours. I was just sitting quiet and say, this is part of the surrender. So for me, it helped. And to be a little bit more quiet and more, what can we do? I mean, it's, what's happening now is something that nobody could think, nobody could imagine. So that from one day to the other one, we have to stay home. So I think it's a great opportunity to grow as people, as person, to grow intellectually because they have more time to read and to study, to grow as human being, to be closer to people that need help and need support. And and also to learn to have tolerance, to have patience and compassion. There were so many people that, I mean, we are lucky because I had a warm house where I could stay home. I had even a husband and I had company. I had my books, I had my intellectual life, I had my yoga life that helped me. And, but there are so many people around the world that did not have anything. Some people don't even have a place where to stay. And without thinking at all the immigrants and all these people. So we are lucky. And so I think it's even the time to think about to have more compassion. And I'm glad also that I had the opportunity to do now two workshops, 3 workshops where I could make money for other people from good cause, for good reason, because this is part of taking care more of the others more than myself. Mm-hmm. And I encourage, I hope that people could do it. And I feel I'm very sorry for all, and happening also in Italy for the yoga teacher that had to close their school because they could not afford to pay the rent.
Yeah. So before we're going to open it soon to people to ask questions, but I have one more question that I would like to ask you is, in this period of time, where do you draw your inspiration? Where do you go, you draw your strengths, the wish to give? Where do you get that from?
From my practice. From my practice. When if I can practice the pranayama and practice samasana, my mood changes completely. I feel positive, I feel self-confidence, I feel stronger, not stronger physically as the muscles, but stronger as a stability, no? Something, I have a core that is there stable. And one thing I would like to say, because I was talking about surrendering. So I learned already about surrendering with the age. This year I turned 70 years old. So many things changed in the life in the last years about my yoga life. So the yoga life already changed with the age. And this, the COVID helped me introduce something else. Mm-hmm. And particularly, I was used to come to practice at my school with the other teacher, and then I had to find my space home, and not with much space anymore, and then practice. So surrender, and I think that surrender is one lesson that almost everybody in the world has to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. So is there before I open it, is there anything that you like to share that I didn't ask you, did you have a chance to to talk in this conversation that you want to tell us before we open it? And in a moment, we're going to open it for your questions.
Not really. I mean, if I want to say something to everybody, it's like, be strong. Be strong. We need to be strong for us and for the others.
I see.
This has been always my motto. And again, be strong is not be strong physical, but as a person. And I always try to struggle to be strong and not to be stiff, not to be rigid, but at the same time to be solid. In Italy, we say, we have something that we say in Sicily, chinati o giunco che passa la marea. It means bend down when the wave comes, otherwise it will destroy you. So we need to be strong, but we need to be flexible.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to open the discussion, the conversation for anybody who has a question. And as you know, no question is not a question. You can ask anything, and it would be wonderful, anything connected to the topic, and it would be wonderful to hear your voices. So please unmute yourself or raise your hand and we'll unmute you and ask your question, and introduce yourself, please. When you speak, introduce yourself to everybody. Anybody? Trish, Liz, can you help me see if anybody is interested in having a question? I don't see everybody.
Nobody asking, okay.
People can raise their hand or unmute themselves, put something in the chat.
We cover everything, Rachel.
I don't, there's so much more. There's so much more to cover. But so could you tell us a little bit more about what are your plans and your hopes for the next few weeks? And I hope some people would have questions about their own practice or what's happening in their own country. And please let us know. So Gabriella, what are your hopes? And what would you like us to, what do you think are your next step with your yoga studio?
Okay, with my yoga studio, what's happening now, we've been closed like every year from the 1st of September to the 15th of September for cleaning. So my next week will be cleaning. And to purify the place, I want to put something, put flowers, something that the students come and say, oh, this is nice. To show that we put care, that we put love in the place. And so like I do every year, this would be my week of cleaning. I could not do the week before because I was doing these classes. And so this is what's going to be. And I hope that my students will come back. Because in May, I had something like half of the students, and I hope that more people will trust and come back.
We have two participants who wants to ask a question. There is the one Mark. Mark, would you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Where is Mark?
Mark. I don't know where Mark is. Just unmute yourself. Can you? Mark?
Maybe he looks like he's frozen. Maybe go to Linda and then go back to Mark.
Okay, so Linda, ask your question and then we'll go back to Mark. Thank you, Liz.
Hello. Hi, I'm Linda. Thank you so much for talking to us today. When you were speaking about the pranayama and the necessity to make it more physical right now, I was intrigued by that. And you spoke about both opening the chest and opening the back of the body. And I wondered what you feel right now are the best things to do for opening the back of the body in relation to pranayama.
Okay. First of all, about the physical, I want just to make it a little bit more clear. I remember once we've done a 2 pranayama workshop with Guruji. And one day, one of the teachers had the passport stolen. one of the students that was there in the class was a teacher. And this was Patricia, because I know that you have done already a meeting with Patricia Walden. So she got a passport stolen from the place. And so Guruji did this explanation that is difficult when you have something disturbing your mind to go to breathe on the inner body. Because what we have to do usually is to start on the center of the body, the breath, and to expand from the center to the side. So then he said, when this happens, don't start your breath on the center of the body and arrive to the border, but you breathe from the side, expanding. And this was very interesting. And I use this also in my classes. So when I have beginner people that start, I don't talk so much about starting from the center and breathing on the inner body and arrive to the border, but I work more on learning how to expand the ribs. Okay? Then, from Guruji, but also from my practice, if I breathe on the front of the body and I try to open, to expand the ribs, particularly when I go to the top of the body, the diaphragm, there is a moment that becomes rigid. Cannot do. If I inhale only on the back of the body and observe what happened to the front of the body, that the front of the body start to open and expand, and even if in the lower part of the chest there is more space here this way, and on the top also it happened in this, but I don't do it. I just breathe on the back of the body. And I watch what happens to the side and to the rest of the ribs. And I found that my breath can expand, can be longer, can be more quiet, both on the inhalation and in the exhalation. So to teach to the student to feel the back of the body, I use different asanas. One of these is Adho Mukha Virasana. In Adho Mukha Virasana, you bend forward on a bolster, on two bolsters. It's very easy to feel the back of the body. But can be even to be in Sukhasana and go a little bit forward. Any asana where you bend forward, it's easier to feel the back ribs, because the problem when we start yoga is that we don't even know that exists the back of the body. And we don't know how to reach the ribs from inside. We don't know how to reach the chest, the body from inside. So we have to learn. And Abhijata, in one of the classes that she did during the COVID, because I did not talk about this, but I did a workshop with Abhijata, and I did also with Raya in these months. She did one class where to observe in the different asana what part of the body can breathe and what part of the body cannot breathe. For example, if you do Urdhvastasana, in Urdhvastasana you can feel that the breath goes vertically up. So if you can do Urdhvastasana for a while, the breath goes up. But even when you put the arms down, the breath continues to go up like with the arms up. So you do Trikonasana to the right, the breath will be on the left ribs, not on the right ribs, because when you go to the right ribs contract, the left ribs expand. So she did a lot of asanas this way, and I've done this class also with my students to show this. So normally everybody, when they arrive to the yoga, when they start, they are aware of the front of the body, front of the face. It's very difficult to go on the back. So from the asana, from Shavasana, or talking about the back, emphasizing the back, slowly, we become aware of the back of the body, and we learn how to reach the back of the body when we breathe. And the same is for the head. We have to learn how to be on the back of our head, not on the front of our head. Also, when we learn to be on the back of the head and of the chest, we become quiet. When we are on the front, we are more agitated, we are stressed. So we have to learn how to do this. Did I answer your question, Linda? Enough?
Thank you very much, Gabriella. This was really interesting. I think Mark has a question. Can Mark would like to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Listen, I was wondering, now my father went to medical school in Italy during the 50s, and I noticed that you had a PhD in physics. And I was wondering if you could tell us how, in your mind, does having studied physics to the level of a PhD and having become a senior Iyengar teacher, do they fit together somehow? Do they synthesize something new for you?
I'm not sure I understood your question. You're saying that how do I combine the studies I do with being a yoga teacher?
Well, an Italian academic is very rigorous compared to American academics. And here you are as an Iyengar teacher. And I was just wondering if you see the relationship between the two, either as having been a student or having been a physicist.
Okay, so I think that we cannot cancel our past. I studied physics and I worked as a physician for 7 years. No, between studying and working, I stayed 7 years in the physics, and then I left. And what happened in the 7 years of studying science, mathematics, physics, chemistry, is that your mind becomes, I don't know how to say in English, very schematic. You become a scientist, no? A scientist is very different from a philosopher, from the poet. The poet can jump from one idea to the other one. A philosopher, if you do a literature, if you write a book, you can have a lot of images and you can go jump from one idea to the other idea. As a scientist, you can't. As a scientist, you say, okay, A, B, C, D. And you have to follow your logic. You become a person that follows the logic. And when you change your mentality that way, you are stuck with that. And so this works very well in the Iyengar yoga, because in the Iyengar yoga, Guruji was very scientist. Was an artist from some point of view, but was a scientist. And Gitaji even more than Guruji from that point of view. So when I try to understand an action, I try to understand an asana, I try to understand the sense of perception, I go from my experience, but I also use my logic. Okay, I have to find A, B, C, D. I have to make very clear in my head the sequence, what to do, to understand. When Guruji was saying, go to the root, this is what I need to do it. This is I never teach something if it's not completely clear from me. Where it comes from, what happens after, who can do it, who cannot do it. So it's my good part, but it's also my limitation. Because sometimes I go to some classes, there are some teachers, they're very poetic, very beautiful. I can't. I have a different quality. I am precise. I try to be precise. I try to be clear. I try to be grounded, to give always in any class something helpful, something that the people can use after. Okay, when you have a lot of images, a lot of beautiful things that the teacher says, maybe you can have a great experience at the moment, but then when you go home, you don't know what to do with that. So I have this, I made my choices in my life. I say, I want to give something useful to the students. Of course, I do my best. If I do, I don't know. But this is my goal. This is my idea. So this is what came from my back. And when I was a teenager, when I was 14 years old, I started to teach. I was teaching mathematics. I taught mathematics, financial mathematics, physics to my friends in school and to my friends at the university, because probably because I was good on it. So from 14 years old, I tried to understand how to teach. And when you learn how to teach anything, you learn how to teach mathematics, you learn to teach physics, you learn a system, a way how to progress. And this is what after helped me with the yoga. And some people like it, some people don't like it. But we always choose our teachers, no? And for me, the goal was not only to explain, because to explain is very easy, but was also to show to to understand why some people could not understand. And this is what I use with the yoga. Somebody is entering. Did I answer you, Mark? Huh?
Thank you so much. So we are at the end of our hour. If there is a burning question, we can try to answer it. If not, we're going to close the meeting, and I'll say a few things. Gabriella, would you like to say any question first? Gabriella, would you like to say something before I close the meeting?
No, I wish everybody good luck. Let's wish that this pandemic, this COVID finish early, because it's enough. And I hope that everybody has the trust and the courage to go and meet other people and not just to be close home when it's possible.
Thank you, Gabriella. So thank you very much for your wisdom, for the story, the insight that you just shared with us. And thank you for the audience that came from so many countries. And I want to say that it's a community together that we humans find the strength to face adversity. And we are here in this all together. So I want to thank also the Iyengar Association of New England and Artemis Yoga for their support. You need a community, and we are very blessed to have a strong Iyengar community to be able to create in this world. We need to remember that we are all interconnected, and that's what I'd like us to stay with, this feeling, and it's in our interconnection and creativity, and thank you very much, Gabriella, for all that healing can flourish. So we have done those virtual coffees since we have been confined, starting in April, and you can find them on YouTube. And Gabriella agreed to have this one on YouTube as well. And I'm pleased to announce that our next guest speaker will come from France. Christian Pisano will be speaking to us on November 8, 2020. So thank you, Gabriella, so much for coming and for giving us what you gave us. And everybody, thank you for coming. And we are all in this together.